Marion, nach rechts rüber. Vers la gauche, s'il vous plaît. More to the left, please. Always. Thank you.
À droite. En tout cas, c'est à droite.
On va faire après une après l'autre, et un après l'autre. Ja, voilà. Et après, on peut mettre. Vers la gauche.
À droite, à droite.
Sorry, in the middle.
À droite. En tout cas, c'est à droite.
Un pas en avant vers la gauche, s'il vous plaît.
À
To the
droite.
left, please.
Please. À droite.
Everyone to the left, please. Everyone. Yes. Marion. Yeah. Marion. Un pas en avant. Voilà. And more to the left, please. Over here. To me. Here. First. And to the right.
À droite.
Allez, dis-moi. On peut faire Marion tout seul.
Okay,
Yep.
and
Look over your left shoulder, please. Look over your left shoulder. Over your left shoulder. Beauty.
Turn to left. And then one look straight ahead in the middle.
And only with your left,
In the middle.
please.
In the middle.
To the left with your right, please. To the left. To the left. Look to the left, please.
Marion, one turn to left.
Vers la gauche. Le regard. One to the left, please. Yeah.
Straight.
Marion.
Just again to your left.
Yes.
and she will be the next superstar.
Et maintenant vers la gauche. Yes.
Here we go.
And only with the face to the left, please.
One
Yeah.
round to left, one step up.
And the three actors of the film.
And one more time, instead of me. Middle, that's perfect.
And only with the face to the left, please. August! August! Wir wollen dich auch noch alleine, bitte.
Doch.
Ciao. Vers la gauche.
Ja, erstmal. Aber nicht weglaufen.
Vers la gauche. Merci.
Lemon look.
Très sympa.
Lemon look. One more time to left. To left. One more time to left. And you pause again. Yes, that's it.
Just in the middle for me.
À droite, s'il vous plaît.
Voilà, deux bons là.
And to the left, please, Mr. Place. Yeah, please.
And one more time to look. Thank you.
This one's in the middle again. And five. Voilà, big.
And to the left shoulder. Yeah. Thank you.
Wir haben da mal was vorbereitet.
Ja.
Genau in die Mitte.
Und noch einmal Qualität. Genau so. Super. August, kannst du noch einmal über die Schulter nach links schauen, bitte? Ja, super.
August, nach links. August, nach links, genau.
Ganz aufgeregt. Gefährlich.
Noch mal nach links, bitte.
Super.
August, noch mal kurz mehr nach links. Noch mehr nach links. Ach ja.
August, schon mal.
Allow the director. Yes.
And look over your left shoulder, please. Yeah, perfect.
Would you look one more time to left? Turn around to left. Yes, that's it, perfect.
And that's the recluser.
Without your accreditation. The accreditation.
Aber dann haben wir den Namen.
Yeah.
Allora, woman project.
Der deutsche Produzent.
Aber das ist ein
Ich wink mal einfach hier.
Kennt ihr auch?
The French film, The Ice Tower, fits perfectly into the competition of the Berlinale because it is about the fascination of filmmaking, that merger of reality and fiction that is a fascinating trait of cinema. French director Lucille Hachihalilovic secretly takes 16-year-old runaway Jeanne from a children's home to a film studio where the Snow Queen is just being shot. The beautiful, mysterious Christina plays a leading role and captivates Jeanne to the extent that the young girl is completely absorbed in that fantasy world. Clara Passini and Marion Cotillard, as well as German actor August Diehl, star in The Ice Tower. And here is the presser.
Bonjour et bienvenue à tous et à toutes à la conférence de presse du film La Tour de Glace, réalisée par Lucille Hadji-Halilovic, que nous présentons en compétition lors de cette 75e édition de la Berlinale. Mon nom est Mathilde Enrault, je fais partie du comité de sélection et je vous invite à accueillir avec moi l'équipe de ce film envoûtant, en commençant de l'autre côté de la table. Enfant, il a grandi près des plus anciennes montagnes de France et a ensuite démarré sa carrière en Allemagne. Connu du grand public pour ses rôles de personnages historiques, dangereux ou emblématiques comme Karl Marx. Dans ce film, il est le troublant Max, August Diehl. Tout juste diplômé du Conservatoire national supérieur d'art dramatique de Paris et pour la première fois à l'écran d'un long métrage, elle incarne Jeanne avec subtilité, intériorité et intensité, Clara Pacini. Célébrée dans le monde entier pour l'intelligence de ses choix et la justesse de ses interprétations, elle retourne devant la caméra de la réalisatrice 20 ans après le film Innocence, pour y incarner la fascinante et fascinée Christina, Marion Cotillard. Fidèle à son attachement au conte, son travail symboliste des couleurs, des sons, mais aussi des silences. Ces univers mystérieux peuplés d'enfants intenses et d'adultes dangereux partagent des visions de rêves et de cauchemars pris dans l'éclat d'un miroir brouillant le sens du temps.
Of dream and nightmare. She's one of the most talented directors in France and indeed beyond. This is her fourth feature film after the feature films Innocence, Evolution and Earwig. Lucille Hadji-Halilovic. Welcome to all of you.
Alors, je commence avec une question pour la réalisatrice.
I'd like to start with a question for the director, and then I'll ask all of you to put your question. Now, of course, the world of fairy tales crops up again and again in your films. Could you perhaps say a few words about how Andersen's fairy tale relates to your film? For a very long time, since I was a child, probably I've been fascinated by Andersen's fairy tales. They're very disturbing fairy tales in a sense. They're frightening, they're fascinating, they're complex. Sometimes they also have a moral aspect. There's this huge poetic universe. The Snow Queen was one of the Andersen fairy tales that fascinated me the most. The film is very freely inspired by it. It's not the exact story, but the young girl meets the Snow Queen. That was the aspect that fascinated me from my film. So that's how it relates to Andersen.
Alors, il y a une question juste ici.
There's a question over here.
Bonjour, ici Anna
Good afternoon.
de Valence, la cartelera Turia.
I'm Anna from Valencia. The film is wonderful. I absolutely loved it. A question from Marion Cotillard.
Vous êtes une actrice qui a une relation très intime avec ses personnages et vous prenez beaucoup
You have a very close relationship to the figures that you play and take a lot of time to prepare. So I wanted to ask about preparing for this role. It's a very introspective figure. And I also wanted to say that I absolutely adored your performance. It was wonderful.
Well,
Christina's a very mysterious figure, as is the Snow Queen, as a matter of fact.
On propose en ce moment de jouer des actrices. Et je trouve ça assez intéressant.
People are offering me various roles as an actress in films, and I find that very fascinating because it's actually quite hard to get under the skin of what being an actor is all about. I know it from within, but playing an actor within films is particularly fascinating. There was something very familiar about playing this role, but at the same time, repeatedly, I've played various mysterious figures, and so I want to keep that mystery for myself as well. I don't want to find out everything. I want to be surprised by certain reactions in the course of shooting. When I play a mysterious character, let myself be carried along by what is around me, what happens on the set on that particular day, the interactions with the other actors. We didn't do rehearsals for this film. I met Clara.
Très intimidée quand j'ai rencontré Clara.
I was quite intimidated when I met Clara.
Premièrement, elle est très charismatique.
She's very charismatic.
La relation de nos deux personnages
and the relationship between our two figures is so very specific.
De fascination,
There's this
de
fascination
aussi,
between the two and an attempt at domination as well.
Et puis d'une certaine violence.
And there's an element of violence in there as well. We met at my place and I realized I didn't dare to look her straight in the eyes throughout the entire meeting. I really felt uncomfortable. I wasn't at ease. And that was really the start of our work together. It was already something that existed between the two of us. And we let myself be carried along. There wasn't any specific, particular preparation. Of course, I always need to write scenes that are not in the screenplay for myself in order to get the mystery across, to convey it through the screen. So we have this actor who's had her hour of glory. She's perhaps not quite as outstanding as she once was. There was something I found very touching about her in that. So I invented her. I invented a whole host of different stories, rivalries, love stories with actors. I invented failures and flops. I invented her decline, in a sense. And that was perhaps what was the most important for me in the course of my own particular preparation.
Je voudrais juste dire une chose, que ce jour-là, quand on s'est rencontrés,
the day that we met, the three of us, at Marion's place, it was winter, it was snowing, and Clara came, she was driven by a driver to Marion's place. That was actually the start of the film in a way. Question over here. Good afternoon. Thank you for this extraordinary film. I'm from the German television. I wanted to ask Marion. Well, we've got snow especially for you in Berlin to welcome you, especially organised just for you and for the film. Do you have personal memories of snow, perhaps from your childhood? Something that you perhaps rediscovered while shooting this film. Well, the special effects in Germany are particularly impressive, it has to be said. They're very good, very impressive.
Oui, j'ai un rapport à la neige assez particulier parce qu'en
Yes, I
fait,
have
je la
quite
vois de moins en moins.
a strange
et
relationship to snow. I
c'est assez
see
terrifiant.
snow less and
Je me
less, which I
souviens
find rather
des hivers quand
terrifying. I
j'étais
remember
petite, où on
winters when
pouvait
I was
plus aller à
little.
l'école parce que
We couldn't go
la
to
porte était
school
bloquée par la
because
neige
the door was blocked by
et dans le même
snowdrifts.
endroit, dans cette maison dans laquelle j'ai
And the
passé
same
mon
place,
enfance, on
the
voit
house where I
plus du tout
spent
de
my
neige.
childhood, there's no snow any longer at all.
Et
We
il
hardly
y a
ever
toujours
snows
une
there any
magie, en
longer.
fait.
There's
Il y a
always
toujours une
something
magie de la
magical
neige
about
chez les
snow,
enfants,
especially for children,
chez les grands-enfants, chez les adultes.
but also for
Il y a
adults who
quelque
are often
chose
just big children.
d'assez fascinant parce que
There's something really
parce que déjà,
intriguing
ça tombe
about
du
it.
ciel, tout
It
simplement.
falls down
Donc,
from the heavens.
il y a une beauté dans le fait que
And
chaque
it's very
flocon
beautiful.
est unique.
Every snowflake is
Et
unique.
voilà, donc c'est vrai que arriver hier sous la neige,
And of course,
se préparer
coming to Berlin
aujourd'hui
yesterday in the snow and
sous un
getting
ciel
ready today
enneigé,
with all of
j'ai
this
trouvé
snow,
ça
this
assez joli.
heavens heavy with snow, I thought that was very charming and attractive.
Yeah, this is Mark Karapetian, publisher of film magazine Spirit, A Smile in the Storm since the 16th living year. Congratulations, what a fantastic film in film. And I would like to know from all of you on stage, what is your relation to the original Andersen fairy tale? Do you love fairy tales in general? Thank you, merci.
Oui, comme je disais tout à l'heure,
Well, yes, as I was saying,
la plupart d'entre nous, j'imagine, on a été
I imagine, like most of us, I was raised with all kinds of fairy tales.
Ma mère adorait Andersen et
My mother loved Andersen,
les histoires d'Andersen,
and she read me Andersen's fairy tales when I was very small. They're sometimes quite cruel stories.
Oui, très cruelles, mais en même temps très très belles, très fascinantes,
But they're very beautiful. They're intriguing and full of images.
J'ai toujours eu tendance
There's an element of initiation as well. I've always tended to make films that do have this fairy tale level within them. It's a way to go really deep, better than starting from reality. We're always looking at boundaries and limits. All my films, I would say, are about growing up, about maturity, tests which make you grow up. So fairy tales fit well with that. I love the poetry of them, and I love the complexity of Andersen's fairy tales in particular.
Et celui-ci, la Reine des Neiges,
This one,
c'est
the
la
Snow
figure
Queen,
de la reine qui
the figure of the Queen
énormément.
was the one that really
Qui est-elle,
captivated me. Who is she? What does she represent?
Qu'est-ce que c'est? Et,
what exactly
et puis,
is her palace? And it really was this meeting with the young girl as well. There's a lot more in the Andersen story than in my film. It's a young girl who sets off to save a boy, what she manages to do, and she meets the Queen at the end. It's a figure of knowledge and of power, attractive yet terrifying. So I found that very compelling as a starting point. For once it was actually a girl who set off on a journey and on a struggle.
Alors moi, je connaissais pas du tout la Reine des Neiges quand
Well,
j'étais
I
petite.
didn't know the
J'ai
Snow
vraiment
Queen
découvert avec les
as a
films
story
Disney.
when I was small. I discovered
Et
it
donc
through
ça
the
a mis
Disney
un certain
films.
temps à ce que je m'aperçoive que
So it took me a
le
while
film
to
Disney
realize
était très loin
that
de
the Disney
l'histoire
film was very, very far
originale.
away from the original
Et j'ai eu la
narrative.
chance de voir le conte mis en scène à la Comédie
I
Française
was
il y a
lucky enough
quelques
to see
années.
it staged at the
Et
Comédie
donc j'ai
Française in
découvert
the
la vraie
theatre
histoire de
a
la
few
Reine des Neiges.
years ago, and so I discovered the true
Et quand j'ai lu le
story.
scénario de
And when I read Lucille's
j'ai aimé ce
screenplay,
qu'elle en avait tiré.
I loved what
J'ai
she'd
aimé la
drawn
manière dont elle l'a
out of the Andersen
interprété.
fairy tale. I loved the way she interpreted it.
J'ai aimé qu'elle. J'ai été assez fascinée par le fait qu'elle remplace ce miroir par une caméra.
By the fact that she takes the mirror and replaces it with a camera. I thought that was highly intelligent.
Et très inspirant.
And very inspiring as well in a sense.
Ça dit du monde dans lequel on vit aujourd'hui.
It says a lot about the world that we live in nowadays as well.
Vraiment très profond.
And so I thought it was really very profound.
Ça a été très tardif ma rencontre avec la vraie fable en fait.
The actual Andersen fable very, very late on in my life. Clara, do you want to say something?
Bonjour tout le monde.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Alors pour les contes, j'avoue
as far as fairy tales go,
j'en lis plus vraiment depuis
I must
que
confess I
j'ai
don't read
9
them
ans.
any longer. I stopped reading when I was 9.
Toute mon enfance.
I read them throughout
voilà,
my childhood,
mais c'est vrai que
certainly.
j'ai découvert du coup le conte de la Reine
But
des
I
Neiges
rediscovered the
avec le
Snow
film de Lucille.
Queen through Lucille's
Qui est
film.
très différent.
It's very different
d'un format pour enfants puisque
from a format that's made for children. There's a lot of violence in the film as well.
Qui est magnifié dans comment dire, dans les mots qui sont choisis. Et,
That's magnified in the words that are chosen as well in the dialogues.
Ja, hallo, guten Tag.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody.
I grew up with the Snow Queen. I was very much surprised that a French know this fairy tale, because I think in France it is not so much known, but it was the most, I would say, most creepy fairy tale that I read when I was young. And when I read the script again, it was one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, because I always thought one should make a movie about them. Snow Queen, and now it's a different thing, but it is very close still to Hans Christian Andersen. And I'm still reading this also to my kids, and it's not only a fairy tale, it's a little bit more than a fairy tale. It's a real creepy story, and I love it.
That's the best ones.
Une question ici.
There's a question over there, I believe.
Johannes Litschel, mein Name, Kulturjoker in Freiburg, Germany.
Johannes
I can
Litschel.
ask in English. I would like to ask one thing to Marion. For me, first of all, thank you very much for the interesting movie. For me, it was interesting, especially because it's kind of a meta movie dealing with shooting a movie within the film. And so you are an actress, playing an actress in this movie, shooting a film. And I would like to know whether there are some specialities or differences to prepare with a role like this. And if there is, maybe you could elaborate just a little bit about this. Thank you.
J'ai l'impression que j'ai un peu répondu à la question déjà.
Well, I think I've partly replied to that question already.
Du coup, je ne sais pas trop.
I don't know what I can add, actually.
Mais non, je ne sais pas. J'ai vraiment l'impression d'avoir répondu.
I really think I've actually already answered that question.
Je ne sais pas si, ou alors vous voulez
maybe you want to ask me something else, or you wanted
de ce que j'ai
me
raconté
to
tout à l'heure par rapport à
answer
la
along
préparation
different lines
du film,
about
en fait,
preparation for this film.
et de jouer une actrice. Peut-être que ce qui est assez fascinant, c'est la mise en abîme que
an actor,
crée
the mise en
dans
abîme
ce film. Et encore une fois,
effect that Lucille creates is very interesting.
D'une certaine manière,
This film within a film, the images within images, replacing the mirror by the camera,
et d'avoir cette
very
femme
striking.
qui se regarde,
and having this woman who is looking at herself
à travers l'image qu'on rend
the
d'elle en la
image
filmant.
of her that is filmed, and she also looks at herself through this child or young girl that she meets.
Il y a différentes mises en abîme dans le film.
So there's various different mises en abîme within the film, boxes within boxes.
Tombe, c'est une femme que je voyais tomber dans,
and I felt as if she was coming, tumbling down, falling into the fascination she has for herself, falling into the fascination she has with this young girl. It reminds her of who she could have been when she was a young girl. There's lots of similarities between their lives as well. And it was interesting to look at this woman who's falling, who's tumbling down and trying to catch herself. And there's of course this relationship to altitude, to high mountains, the snow falling. And in terms of the energy and the vibes of it, I wanted this to be somebody who's going slithering down, she's falling, she's tumbling, but trying to catch herself as she falls. There's this sense of movement and motion from on high to down below, and also movement upwards as well. She suffers from a lack of stability, for not being able to just walk straight ahead. Because in fact, when I asked you to play this role, I wondered whether it might not be too disturbing for you to play this actress, who in a sense shapes her gaze through looking at herself. There's this mirror created by the devil that deforms the world, and that shatters, and the fragments go into the eyes and hearts of people. That's what happens in the fable. So here you have this deformed, misshaped image in the film. You see what appears on screen, and that's the image of Christina in the film. And perhaps that's problematic for an actor. Perhaps it touches a nerve where you might find something disturbing when you see yourself on screen. You have your image. Even somebody like you who's had this long career with all of these films, perhaps nonetheless it's hard or perplexing to see yourself on screen. I just didn't know. It is disturbing, I think, also for a director as well. Because sometimes you feel as if you've manipulated the character too.
Hi.
Another question.
A question in English. Hassan Fahmi, film critic from Egypt. So, to Marion Cotillard, with a certain level of beauty, fame, and legacy, people treat you more in a mystic way. You become more of a goddess than a normal person. Like we saw also in the movie how Bianca is treating Christiana. How you deal with this as an actress, you, and also in your personal life?
En fait, ce rapport à l'image qu'on peut avoir d'un acteur ou d'une actrice, je pense que c'est important.
There's a relationship to the image one might have of an actor or actress. You need to protect yourself from that.
Au réel.
You need to be connected to the real world. Of course, what is reality? What is the real world? Is that the same thing for everybody? Well, it certainly isn't. But I think that it's important to protect yourself, particularly in today's society.
Où on invente. Enfin, je pense que le public, avec ce mot, a toujours inventé.
I think that the general public, the audience, has always invented the life of actors they've never met, celebrities, singers, whatever. And now we feel as if we know more because we feel as if we have greater access through all the various different media, conventional media and social media as well, and the way in which the media interpret what people say on social media, for example. So we have the impression that we're closer to reality, but I actually think that we're further away from it than ever.
J'essaie de me protéger au maximum de ça, même
from that possible.
Que ce soit négatif, c'est toujours encore une
positive, negative. It is a mirror that is entirely distorted. It's a deforming mirror. It sends back a misshapen image, and our lives as actors are tumultuous. The way in which you live with yourself and develop yourself and get to know yourself. Sometimes you feel you've managed to come to terms to love yourself, but you have lapses because something or other in your life means that you start to look at yourself judgmentally again. And harshly. I think it's actually quite hard to live with oneself. So I try to protect myself as much as I can from the kind of image that people give me, because I know that that image is very often very far from reality.
Une question juste là.
Yeah. A question there?
Hi, I'm Diana Marquesian, Yerevan Magazine, Armenia. My question is maybe a bit similar to the previous one. I'm sorry, I made it up before. So, details, maybe Snow Queen is the diva of Andersen's world, and actors and actresses are, we have this thing between them, like there's a thin line between Christina and Snow. So I would like to know, as actors, distinguished actors who like have both of you, August and Marion, big filmographies. I want to know how you deal with that stereotype about being a diva, about maybe some people think that actors are narcissistic and cold, and we see these Christinas and Snow White similarities. So what's behind it? And if there's any trauma about Christina you want us to reflect and analyze, maybe there are some hints we missed or something you can reveal. Thank you very much.
It's always a bit difficult when people ask about the meaning of something in a film, because I feel like the film didn't succeed in doing that, and maybe it's something that you can think, and for everyone could be different. Peut-être je vais aller en français, en fait.
Let me continue in French.
Non, j'ai pas. D'abord, le film, je dois dire quand même.
I must say,
on l'a écrit avec.
I wrote
à la jeune fille et à son.
And we were thought the young girl and her, if you like.
Dans ce côté-là, que
so the film's a bit American in that sense. There's a trauma, which is at some point the film revealed. Then the kind of, and as there is this mirror effect, there's certainly something going on with Christina as well. They reflect each other's, or moment each other's lives.
Jeanne dans l'histoire peut choisir un chemin ou un autre.
Jeanne chooses to go down one route or another in the film. I didn't really think that Christina was a diva as such. I thought she was a woman who had been hurt, who'd constructed the armor, ice, which cut her off from other people. It made her sublime and beautiful, but it cut her off from other. Jean arrived. This carapace started to melt away, and emotions came bubbling up that actually overwhelmed her. The viewer to come up with their own ideas about Christina and some kind of trauma she might have had. There are some hints in the film that point to that. When Christina says to Jeanne one way or another, we would have escaped one another and missed each other. That does make me think of something, but it really all depends on how you read it. It's up to you to interpret it. One last question.
Hello, my name is Maha. I'm a journalist from Egypt. I have a question for Lucille. A lot of Anderson's work was inspired by his own history of failed stories and loneliness that he sort of projected into his stories. Like the Snow Queen herself was an opera singer that rejected him. And an opera singer is a performer, so we can stretch it and imagine her as an actress. So I feel in your film there is this layer of the reality and how this reality is projected into fantasy and fiction, which makes me sort of curious how much of the film or how much of your work that handles fairy tale is actually also inspired by the people behind the fairy tales, like the writers themselves. Thank you.
Je pense que je pense que mes films ils ont un rapport fétichiste au monde qui est aussi une forme de nostalgie.
Have a kind of fetishistic relation to the world that is a form of nostalgia. I'm not going to answer your question directly, but this is part of the answer, I think.
Il y a voilà, il y a un manque, il y a une forme de faille ou de solitude.
There's a lack of something, a solitude.
J'ai envie de faire des films et de créer des univers qui sont
and therefore want to make films and create universes that are a kind of consolation. I'm not sure exactly what they're consoling anyone for. I have a rough idea, but that doesn't matter. And in this case, Jeanne
notre protagoniste
is at the heart of the film. And in a sense, perhaps she's a duplicate of me.
Je suis pas dans sa situation.
I'm not in her situation, but there's the idea of looking for a world that will exist forever in which to take refuge.
Je ne crois pas que je peux en dire plus que ça.
I don't think I can say any more than that by way of an answer.
Merci à tous. Malheureusement,
thank you to everybody. Unfortunately, we have to wind up the press conference now.
Thank
you for your questions.
Thank
you
to
everybody who's here with us today. Thank you to all the cast and crew.
Je crois que j'ai pas du tout compris sa question.
Yes.